Good morning, everyone. I'm Michael. I'm going to be your host for today's session. So I'll be doing the demos and the talking. Joined by Jackie as well today, who will be in the background answering any questions that you might submit during the session today. So we're looking at the stock valuation reports today. One of the more advanced topics that we are covering. So quite a bit to get through, loads of demos, just to hopefully so that you have a good understanding of the reports and what to look for, and so you have a good understanding of how they calculate, and hopefully that's what we're going to achieve by the end of today's session. I'm sure you'll think of some questions along the way, but there's loads of myths surrounding these these reports as well, so hopefully we'll just clarify that during the session today. Right, now for those of you that are new to webinars or maybe haven't attended for some time, just to let you know what's going to be happening today. Obviously you'll see my screen today. I'm going to be sharing my desktop. So you'll see me working in the software. We'll be sharing some slides with you as well today. If you want a copy of the slides, you can download the handout that's now available. Nearly forgot to upload that one, but it is now available. So there's a link for that one on your toolbar if you want to grab a copy of those slides. There is much more detailed information available though from within our help center. So if you do need that, nice and easy to find. Now you don't need a microphone for these sessions. If you've got one and you've enabled it, then you will find that you just muted automatically and you can't unmute yourself during the session. So you can't actually speak to us, but you'll still be able to pop questions into the questions panel. Now to do that, you just need to click on the little icon that looks like the speech bubble containing the question mark. It'll expand that panel. You'll get that box in the bottom right-hand corner, a bit like what you can see on my screen at the moment on the slide. And then you can just start typing your questions and your comments into that box. Pop them in there, click send. It'll pop up on myself's and Jackie's screen, and we'll try and get an answer to you. Now that's either going to be an answer to your question. If I can pick it up, we might run a little demo here and there just to try and explain that. Or it may be that Jackie provides you with a link to a help center article, or if it's a bit more complex, we may encourage you to get in touch with our support team. So keep your questions coming though. We'll try and answer as many as we can. Now let's have a look at what we're going to be covering in this session today. So a little bit of background to stock valuation and the reports that you have available. We're then going to run through the demonstrations of the 4 key reports that you've got available to you. Now these are the standard reports that are available in the software. I'll explain a little bit more about availability in a moment as well, but these are the standard 4 reports that come with CH50. So we're going to run through each of them in turn and just explain how they calculate, what they show, and things to watch out for. Once we've gone through that, I've got a few issues just to quickly mention about, so common queries, that type of thing, we will be picking up along the way as well. And then we'll just explain more about the additional support that's available to you, upcoming webinars, and then we'll hang around for questions as well. After today's session, you will receive a follow-up email. You'll get that round about, I think we got it scheduled for mid-afternoon today, which will give us a chance to get the recording available for the time you get that. So watch out for that one. It will include links so that you can register for our upcoming sessions and also watch recordings. If you need a bit of a recap, then watch out for that one. The recording should be available by then. Right, let's get stuck in then. So a little bit of background, first of all, to stock valuation and also the reports that you have available today. So as I mentioned earlier, the aim of today's session is really to look at those reports, see what's there and explain how they calculate. Now, for those of you that are familiar with stock control, there's various, I can't think of the word I'm looking for, but the process that we're going to be looking at today is, and it's a principle that Sage would use, is first in, first out. So as transactions get posted and stock gets adjusted in against the relevant records, it will be used in that order as well. So as you enter invoices, sales orders, and you allocate the stock, etc., or even if you just post an adjustment out, it will be on a first in, first out basis. So it's quite, if you've got variable cost prices, that's something to be aware of, but we'll be looking at that when we pick up on the activity today. Now, for the reports that we're looking at, so the 4 that I mentioned on the agenda there, they are actually only available in the professional level of the software. Now, there are alternatives to them, so you can use your other reports that are available. You may even just want to use the send to Excel function that's available, so sending a list of maybe your product list across to Excel, and then maybe doing a manual calculation yourself. There is, of course, our report design service as well. So if you find that you need a slightly different report, or maybe something completely different, if you don't want to do that yourself using the report designer, because it can be a complex bit of the software if you're not familiar with it, very powerful tool, but can seem very complex if you've not used it before. I suppose even if you have used it before, it still looks quite complex. So if you'd like us to do the legwork for you and maybe tweak your reports or design them for you, do get in touch with our support team, as we can do that. Now, I've included a link on the slide there as well. So if you have downloaded the slides, the link to the main article in our help center for the valuation reports, that's available for you. Very easy to find anyway within our help center. Right, so what we're going to be looking at today, and I'll just quickly share my screen before we start going through the reports themselves. So where's my Sage? There we go. So we're going to head into products and services today. And if I look at this record here, so stock A, I've called it. I've kept it really simple today. I've just got a handful of records. I've got very little else in the background. I've got a handful of transactions. I've got some, as you can see, quantities in stock. I've got a mixture as well of, I've got a non-stock item. I've got a service item in here as well that I've entered. And I've got a number of stock items as well. Now, if we just look at the activity on this one, so I can do that by going into the actual record itself, and I've got the activity tab there on the side, but I can also just highlight it and go into the activity icon at the top. So obviously just maximized automatically in my case. So what we can see in this instance is we've got the list of stock transactions. Now, you'll only get an activity and stock transactions recorded against it if it is classed as a stock item. So within the record, there are potentially 3 item types that you can have. You can have a stock record, a non-stock record, and if you are on the professional level, which I'm sure many of you are, you can also have a service record as well. So as you enter transactions against any items that are classed as a stock record, it will start recording the transactions. So you can see in this instance, I've got 3 AI transactions. So I've got 1 in January, 1 in February, 1 in March of this year, each for quantity of 10 coming in and a cost price of £10. So it's the same cost price in this example. So it just records them. So it'll record it via any manual adjustments in and out, invoices, credits that you post, and possibly bill of materials transactions. If you want to find out more about the stock transactions, Jackie actually ran a session on the different stock transaction types earlier this week. So that recording is available, and the link will be included on your follow-up email. Right, okay, let's just head back to the slides for the moment. So I can find the right button. Here we go. Right, now one thing to consider when you're running your valuation reports is that, do you need it as at now, as in the current state of play, or do you need it as at a particular point in time? So do you need the reports to support your stock valuation at year end, or maybe at month end, or whenever you want to update your management reports? So there is different reports available. So you've got different criteria, and we'll explain the one report, which is the respective one, that is the only one that is date sensitive in the software. So we'll be covering all 4 of them today, but this is something to be aware of. So we're going to start looking at the reports themselves at this stage. So we'll run through all 4. Obviously I'll tell you a little bit about it. We'll then have a look at the report itself and explain how it calculates. So we're going to start with the very first one, which is the product valuation report, average cost price. Now this report, when we look at it in a moment, it's going to show you the current quantity in stock. It's not a date sensitive for this report, this one. So when you run it, it's just going to give you as at now. So even if you've done an adjustment and you put a future date in, it will pick that up as well. So it's the current state of play. It just ignores dates completely. So it's going to look at that activity, see what you've got in stock, and it will show that. Now, one of the things to be aware of is that it uses the average cost price. And again, this is where the first in, first out element comes from. So I'm going to try and explain that as we run through the example as well. So let's get back to my screen and we'll start running through a few reports. Right, now going back to this one, this stock A, we have another quick look at the activity just to remind you. You can see we got 3 adjustment in transactions. So we got 10 in each at a cost price of £10. So the value of this stock at the moment is going to be 10 times the £10, so £100, and we've got 3 lots of that. So you'd expect it to show £300 in total. So if you pop into reports, into the product valuation folder, we've got the 4 reports listed. Now, if there's a specific one that you use all the time, you can flag it as a favorite. It just means when you come in, because it's going to highlight that favorites folder, it means that that report is going to be listed. But otherwise, into product valuation, we'll start with this first one. So we'll just preview it. As you can see, the only thing it asks me for at this stage is which stock category do I want to run that for. So if you wanted to narrow that down and only pick up a certain category, you can do that. You could even filter your list beforehand as well. So your products, maybe you've got them flagged in some way, like set by location, for instance. You might want to produce the report based on that. But because I only had stock A selected, which is that product I got set up, it will only run the report for that one product. Now that's tiny even on my screen, so let's zoom in a bit so we can see that a bit clearer. So what we've got on the average cost price report, this one is obviously we've got the code, the description, the current quantity in stock. So again, that's not date sensitive for that one. It's got the average cost price. Now the average cost price, obviously it calculates that based on what you've currently got in stock. It's not the average cost price for potentially a full activity, particularly if some of them have been used. It's the average cost price is based on what you've got in stock. Now, because all of my cost prices were exactly the same, it's given me an average cost price of £10. So we got 30 units, average cost price of £10. Nice straightforward calculation. That one, stock value £300. Sales price, I've got that added as £100 per unit in my product record. So expected sales is just your quantity in stock times your sales price gives you that expected sales value. So it's quite a straightforward one, that report, based on the average cost price. But obviously the questions come when that cost price varies. And I've got another example so I can show you that one. So let's just go on to stock B this time. So if we have a look at the activity for stock B, again, nice and simple. So I've got 2 adjustment in transactions. I've got 1, which is in January, unit quantity of 10, and then we've got a cost price of £10. In February, we've got a further quantity in of 10, and this time the cost price has doubled, so it's gone up to £20. So what you would expect for this one, if you were working out a valuation, is 10 times the 10, 10 times the 20, add those values together. So again, you would actually come back to £300, but it's going to calculate a different average cost price this time. So let's have a quick look at that one. So stock B is selected, into reports, valuation, average cost price, preview it, accept the defaults. And again, if we zoom in, so we can see remember the two adjustment in, so both 10. And this time it works out an average cost price based on what we've currently got in stock. This time the average cost price of those units that we've got in stock is 15, giving us a total stock value of 300. So when you're looking at this, do be aware of how the average cost price calculates. You can sometimes find issues where people if you've maybe done a manual adjustment in, so you've adjusted some stock in, but actually maybe you forgot to enter a cost price. So you've adjusted them in with a zero cost price. So that would add into the quantity, but obviously it's therefore going to reduce that average cost price because you haven't got a cost price associated with that transaction. And that potentially that's a query, a common query as well, that one. So again, otherwise, same calculations. Now, taking into account that first in, first out basis, we're now going to have a look at stock C. Well, let's have a look at the activity on this one. Slightly different this time. So we got the same as, so essentially we've got an adjustment in, got a further quantity in of 10, cost price of 20. So we essentially the same activity as what we've just looked at. However, we've then got a goods out transaction of 6. Now that quantity used, that 6 that we've adjusted out, it's gone against this transaction. So using that first in, first out principle, we can say for this transaction where we bought 10 at £10, 6 of them have been used, either adjusted out or sold. So in this case, it's goods out transaction. It was via an invoice. So there's 4 of these units essentially left in stock. So 4 of the units at £10, 10 of the units at £20. So obviously that's going to impact on the average cost price. So let's have a look at that one. So again, back to that valuation, average cost price, and we'll just preview it. It's a shame for presentation purposes that it doesn't just zoom into this size so that you can see it. I'm having to scroll in each time. Right, anyway, what we've now got, as you can see, we've got quantity in stock of 14. We've got the average cost price of £17.14. Obviously, if we didn't have variable cost prices, that average is just going to be the same. So it'll be, in the earlier example, it would have been £10, but because we had so many units at £10 and so many units at £20, it's recalculated that average cost price. So overall, it's calculated a stock value of £240. It knows the sales prices of each unit for this stock C. Got it set as £100. So therefore, expected sales is the 14 times the 100. But stock value wise, on this report, again using that first in, first out basis based on my current stock levels, is £240. So that's the average cost price report. So the big one in that the big query relating to that one is all to do with the calculation of the average cost price. Next, we're going to look at, I would regard it as being a simpler report, and it's the second valuation report that's available. It's the product valuation last purchase price, or last cost price as it says in the record itself. So a little bit of inconsistency there, but it's the same thing. So again, on the report, it's going to show you the current quantity in stock. So again, this isn't a date sensitive report. It's not showing you what you had in stock at a certain time. It's going to look at the last cost price standard field, which is within the record itself. And obviously it's going to calculate a stock value based on that. Now that last purchase price, let's have a look at that first of all within the record. So I just close out of the reports. Just want to show you what I'm actually referring to. So I'll have a look at stock B. This is the one I'm going to use for the example in a moment. So we'll go into that record, just maximize that to get rid of the distraction of the background. And then we've got this field here, this last cost price. So in my case, it's £20. This is the one that's used. So it's not looking at an average cost price this time. It's looking at the last cost price. Now this is going to be updated from a number of different options. One is if you do a manual adjustment in, it would update it. If you do a purchase order and dispatch that, again, that would be something that would, issue goods received via a purchase order. Again, when you update that purchase order to the ledgers, it's going to update this price. I could, of course, you can see I can click into that field, and if I did that, it will use that instead. But I'm just going to leave it set to 20 for the purpose of this example. So do be aware that potentially you could override that. So what this is essentially going to give you when we look at the valuation report, which we'll do that now. Just close out of that. So when we run that report, so this one, second one on the list, preview it. Again, you see, it doesn't ask me for dates. All it asks me for is what category do I want to run that for. Come on to categories next. And if we just again zoom in so you can see what information is included on the report. So same layout to what we just essentially looked at for the average cost price. So it's got the quantity in stock, cost price, which is the last purchase price or last cost price, the stock value, which is calculated automatically, sales price, which is calculated, and also that expected sales. So this time it doesn't matter about that variable cost price. So where we had 10 units at £10 and 10 units at £20, it doesn't matter about that. What it's looking at is the quantity that you've got in stock and what the last cost price was. So in this case, essentially this report is going to say, right, well, actually, if you needed to replace that stock, or if that stock, if you sold it, it's currently worth, as a stock value, the 20 units times £20, so 400 in total. Not necessarily what you paid for it. It's saying, right, you've got 20 of these in stock, and the current cost price, the last time you purchased it, was £20. So based on current stock values, it would be £400. So it's a nice, simple report, that one. So just to quickly pick up on that one again, if we go back into stock B, and I will override that price this time. So let's put a different price in there. So let's just say £17.50. We'll save that. And we'll quickly run that report again, just so you can see it is picking up that price. So it's pulled it straight through. So your last cost price is £17.50. And again, we've got that adjusted stock value this time. So current quantity in stock times whatever that last cost price was gives us our stock value. Right, hope everyone's with me so far. Any questions, anything you're not sure of, keep your questions coming. Remember, you can pop them into that questions panel at any time. You can show or hide that at any time as well. We'll try and pick up as many as we can. Right, let's pop back to the slides. The next report we're going to look at then is the third one on the standard list of reports, and it's product valuation by stock category. So again, this is going to show you the current quantity in stock it's not a date sensitive report. It'll show you your current quantity in stock, again, taking into account all adjustments in and out, irrespective of dates. So current quantity in stock, it's going to go back to using the average cost price again. So we're going back to similar to what we looked at earlier. Show you your stock value, but this time what it's going to do is, rather than just list the products, it's going to group those by category. So within your product record, you've got a categories option. Now, if you've not come across these before, I suppose it's up to you what you would want to use them for. I suppose if you were like in like a clothing manufacturer, for instance, your stock might be in fashion seasons. You might have spring, summer, autumn, winter. So it's up to you what you want to use it for. So for Sage, as an example, let's think we might have categories which are software sales. We might have categories of support. We might have had categories of stationery. We don't supply stationery anymore, but it would have been a category historically that our products and services would have fallen into. So it's really, the category is used for reporting purposes, and you can set those up as well. So we'll have a quick look at the categories first of all, just to give you that little bit of extra information, and then we'll have a quick look at the report itself. Right, back to my desktop. So if we just pop into, actually we'll not select anything this time. I'll just pop into stock category here first of all. So this is the category. So you can see we can put names against them. By default, you'll have category 1 through to 999. So you've got 999 categories that potentially you can use. You can assign names to them. To assign a name to a category, we just close out of that record. All we need to do is go into settings, configuration, top option. Just click yes to close that window. And then within the configuration editor, we've got a products tab at the top. And then you've got your product categories here. So it's just a case of you selecting a category. So number 3 in this instance, I will click edit. And let's do 2023 autumn, just as an example. Okay, that, and you can see it pops that on the list. So the categories themselves are already set up. Just a case of you popping in, editing it, and popping in a description next to it. I click OK. And when I go back to products and services, if needed, I can go into a record and that would then be available for me. Right. Now this time I'm going to make sure I've got nothing selected. So nothing highlighted. If you've got a great big list and you want to make sure, you can just click clear at the top. Clear, if it's available to you, would tend to indicate you've got something selected. If it's grayed out, it would mean that you've got nothing selected at the moment. And it would mean that then potentially all of your records are going to be included on your report. Anyway, let's pop into reports, back to valuation. Now, if I just run the standard one again, first of all, so I've got no records selected. I'm wanting to potentially include all records. I'll just preview that one just to remind you what the standard, that first report looked like. So in this instance, it's just a great big list of my products, quantities in stock, etc. So it's just a great big list in that point in this instance. And that's going to be in product code order. So coming on to this third report, product valuation by stock category. If I run it, again, you can see, it doesn't ask me for a date range, so it's not a date sensitive report, this one. I can choose to run it for a range of codes, but I want to try and run it for all of them if I can, and I could run it for a specific category. But again, I'm just going to run it for all of them. So we'll just OK that. It's very quick in my instance because remember, I've not even got really a handful of records and I've just got a few transactions posted, so really quick. Let's zoom in so you can see this one a little bit clearer. So essentially, this is the same calculation per product as the original report that we looked at, the one that used the average cost price. So all it's doing this time, it's splitting them by category. Now you'll notice some of my records aren't included there. So it's only including, we'll come back to this one a little bit later on, it's only going to be including those that actually have a stock value. So you can see it's split it between the categories. Obviously, it pulls through the name of that as well. Current quantities in stock based on what you've currently got in stock. And obviously, it just lists it at that point. Now, any of these reports as well, if you need them, you can obviously you could export it, save it as maybe an Excel file, or if you want to, you can send the report itself across to Excel, or even the data to direct to Excel if you want to manipulate it in a bit more detail. But I think if you understand that very first report and how the average cost price calculates, then this one's straightforward. It's just got that extra little bit of grouping in that one. Right, we're next going to come on to probably the one that creates the most queries with our support team, and probably the one that's most difficult to get your head round, and it's the retrospective one. Let's head back to the slides first of all, and we'll quickly run through a little bit of an introduction to this one as well. Right, now this one, again, it's going to show you the quantity, it's going to show you values, it's going to group it by category, so a bit like the previous one we've just looked at. It'll group your records together. But this time, it's going to let us specify a date. So when do we want to run that report up to? Now, it just asks us when we want to run it up to. It doesn't ask us when we want to run that report from. And as you'll see on the screenshot, it runs from the 1st of the 1st, 1980. So 1st of the 1st, 1980 is actually the earliest date you can enter into Sage 50 accounts. So that's why it runs from that date, to make sure it includes your full activity from whenever you've started using the software. You can't change that date. It doesn't let you specify that one, but it will ask you when you want to run that up to. So we're going to have a quick look at how it calculates. So we've already explained why 1980. Don't really need to worry about that one, but it's one of those questions we'll always get asked when we're discussing this report. People are looking at why that date. But this report, it can have issues which are caused by running the clear stock option. And I'm going to explain how this report calculates and why that clear stock option can be an issue. And I'm going to include a demonstration of that one as well. It's something that you need to be aware of when you are running this report. Right, so let's get back to my desktop. We'll run through a couple of examples. Right, let's have a look at this one. Now, if we have a look at the activity of this product, we've got an adjustment in on the 1st of January. So I'm trying to get away from variables, etc. here as well, just so I can try not to confuse everyone. So in January, the only transaction that we've got at that point is 10 in at a cost price of £10. You can see 2 units have been used, but they are essentially caused by these transactions, which are in April and May. So in January, the only transaction I've got there is 10 units at £10. February, I've got another adjustment in of 10 units at £10. And at the end of March, I've got, again, another one, 10 units at £10. And then in April, I've got 1 going out. And then in May, I've got 1 going out. So let's just quickly run that report, the retrospective one. So it's this one here. So I'll preview that. And you can see this time, as well as the stock category, it's also asking me for the transaction date. So this is based on the product transaction dates. Now, by default, it will pick up 2050. Now, a little tip I would give you at this stage, obviously, if you're wanting to run it up to today's date, or maybe just a little, maybe the end of the previous month or end of the previous financial year, something like that. Well, don't come in here and start scrolling through, because that's going to do it a month at a time. You'd be on forever with that one. You probably get RSI on your index finger clicking your mouse with that one. So what you want to do is this: you can either type in the date or use this little date picker tool. You've got this just about every time you specify a report. So much easier just to choose one of these options. So let's say I'll do last month, and then what I'm going to do is, so I'll choose a date, roughly what I want, and then maybe I can just scroll back a couple of months. So let's say I want this valuation of that product or my products as at the end of January. So remember, on the activity, all I had was 10 units in at £10. And that's exactly what it's found on this report. So it's got the code, it's got the description, it's got the quantity, and it's got the value. Now I'm just going to do this again. I'll do it another couple of times. I'll run it, let's see where we're going to run it to. We'll run it to the end of February this time. Just okay that. And again, this time, as you can see, it's quantity of 20 this time. So that's what would have been in stock at the end of February. So 20 units at £10 each, so giving us a stock value of £200. We'll just quickly repeat that for the other months. I'll do last month and then just flick back one. So if we do it up to the end of March, again, exactly what you'd expect. 30 units, £10 each, giving me a value of 300. Right, I'll run it one more time. Well, another one. This time we run it up to the end of April. So this is where the goods out transaction starts taking effect. So bearing in mind that I've currently got 30 units booked in, and currently I had 2 goods out transactions, each for a unit each. So in stock, I've got 28. But if I run this as at the end of March, you can see again what it's showing me is I've got 29 units as at the end of March. £10 each, £290. So nice and straightforward, that one. Now, the way that this report calculates is it looks at the activity, and that's what I want to pick up on next. So let's have a look at maybe potentially an issue with that report. So with this report, you hear a lot of warnings about this report. Don't run this report if you've ever cleared stock. And the way that the retrospective report actually works, if we just bring up the activity, is it looks at the quantity in and the quantity out for the relevant date range that you've specified. So if I was running the report up to January only, that's why it's the 10 units. End of February, it's the 10 units. So it's looking to calculate the quantity that you've got in stock. It's looking at the transactions that are on the activity within that date range. So in versus less any outs. So nice and straightforward in this example. However, if you've ever cleared stock, and if you're wondering whether you have cleared stock, you can check that by going into help and then about. And there's an option here So in this sort of configuration information column, you've got a clear stock date. Now mine says N/A, not applicable. So I've never cleared stock on this in this company, as it were. Right, let's just close out of that one. We'll go back to our products. But what I am going to do is I'm going to clear stock. Now, when you clear stock, and we've got a webinar on this one that's recorded. So when you clear stock and it looks at your activity, it's going to look at the only thing you need to specify is say which products you want to clear stock against, and also when you want to clear up to. Now, let's say I want to clear my stock transactions up to and including the end of April. Now, what it's going to do is it's going to look at the individual stock transactions, and it's going to get rid of any transactions that are categorized as having been used. So in this case, this transaction, if I was clearing up to the end of April, I've still got a quantity left of this one, this adjustment in. So I had 10 originally, and I've used 2 of them. So I've still got 8 of these in stock. So it's not going to get rid of that transaction because I've still got 8 of them left. This one, I've got all 10 of them left. That one, I've got all 10. This goods out transaction though, it's just a quantity out transaction. So it's a goods out transaction. That's automatically flagged as fully used. So when I clear stock, if I was to clear up to the end of April, it's going to get rid of this transaction. It's no longer needed. And that's exactly what I'm going to do now. So I'm going to go into Tools, Period End, and then Clear Stock. And what I'll do is I'm only going to do it so I'm going to select this record here to clear transactions on selected records only. So it was this one here. That's the one we've just been looking at. So I'll just do it for that one. And I want to say that I want to clear stock transactions up to and including the end of April. Clear stock. I'll just cancel out of that backup option. It's not going to let me. So I'll just accept that. Quickly let it take the backup. So it tells me the clear stock it's been done up to that month now. Right, let's quickly pop back to the products and services. So we'll have a look at this one. So you can see we've still got 28 in stock. Nothing's changed there. But if we have a look at the activity, what we'll see this time is that we still got the original adjustment in transactions, 10 of each, and it still knows that 2 of them of that first one have been used. But the goods out transaction that was in April has now been removed. You've cleared it. And this is where, if you've cleared stock, it can interfere with a retrospective valuation report. So let's just quickly show you that one and how it impacts. So we'll run it up to the end of last month. Just OK that. And as you can see on this one, when we run this report previously, when we had all of that activity, it was actually showing 29 in stock. But because it's got rid of and you've cleared that goods out transaction, it means now it's looking at all of the goods in transactions that are on the activity up to the date that we specified. So we had 3 lots of 10 coming in, and we haven't got any out transactions within that period this time. So this time it's saying, right, you've got 30, which actually is incorrect because obviously we had 29 at that point in time. So that's why if you are running this report, do not clear your stock. If you've cleared your stock, potentially if you've removed any of the activity from that one, there can be situations where it still does work, but they're probably more likely that you're going to find that some of your products and the activity has been affected in the way that we've just demonstrated there. It means it's not then going to calculate accurately. So do be aware of that one. If you're using that retrospective, so you need to know what a stock valuation was at a point in time, that is the report to run but it can throw up some spurious figures if you have cleared that stock. So be aware of that one, please. Right, let's quickly pop back to the slides. A little bit more to tell you, and then we'll wrap up. So with dates, obviously we've mentioned a little bit about that one. The only report that is date sensitive is that retrospective report. Another common question is, why are products missing from my valuation report? Well, it's going to be things like, obviously it only includes stock records in the first place, but your stock record, it needs to have a value. So if you've got 20 in stock, but you've adjusted it in with a 0 value, you've got 20 times 0, it doesn't have a value. So it wouldn't include it on the report. So that's something to be aware of as well. I've linked off to an article there, that green button on the slides, if you've downloaded the handout, why products don't appear. There's a few other potential reasons as well. But the common ones are, first of all, it's not a stock record. Another one, maybe you've adjusted in with a 0 cost price. So that report would explain why and what you need to do about that. Decimal precision, be aware of that one. Within Sage, you can set decimal precision between no decimal places and 6 decimal places for both the unit price and the quantity. So do be aware of that one. And then finally, the other thing to consider as well is filters. So if you think, well, actually, I can't quite get what I'm after, I only want it to include certain records, you can go through selecting, or you can filter your list. So you can apply a filter beforehand and then run the report. It's a very common query for any report within Sage where people will contact our support team and say, right, this is exactly the report I want, but I only want it to include customers in a certain area or a certain type of customer or certain invoices, maybe customers allocated to a particular account manager, that type of thing. So what we're looking at today, product records, no different. You've got filters so that you can show or hide records. So consider that before, it just adds that extra flexibility to your reports. Farah, your question there, you just mentioned there that you're new to Sage. Why would you clear stock transactions? Again, it might just be, there might be just stock transactions that you just think, actually, I just don't need them anymore. It used to be a few years back that you could clear your stock transactions, but it would do it across the board. These days, obviously, that wizard, you did say I could do it to apply that to all product records or only certain ones. So to be able to delete a product record, for instance, it's got to have no activity. So that's when you might think, right, I want to start clearing stock transactions. It'll reduce the size of your data. Potentially, the less data you have, the smaller your backups are, the more efficiently your software will run. So there are a number of reasons why you might want to clear stock transactions. We do have a webinar on that one as well, though. So there is a webinar recording. Watch out for your follow-up email, and it will include the link that you need so you can watch that. So that would come under the heading on the recordings of clearing records. Your follow-up email will be with you. I think we've got it scheduled today for about 3 hours after we finish today. So you're looking at about quarter to 3. So considerations for your reports. Obviously, stock take. Do you need to run a stock take? Maybe prior to running your reports, check your stock levels, make sure they're right. There's a webinar recording on that one. Jackie took you through stock take if you attended the session yesterday. So there is a recording on that one. Opening and closing stock journals. So do you need to reflect that stock valuation in your nominal ledger and therefore on the likes of your trial balance reports, your balance sheet reports? If so, then you will need to post opening and closing stock journals. Now, if you want to reflect them on your management reports and you need to post those journals, I'm running a webinar on that one next week. Nicely timed, that one. So 2 o'clock, Thursday next week. Again, if you want to register for that session, watch out for your follow-up email. Just a quick plug for Sage membership, just before we wrap up and pick up any questions that you might still have. So lots of advantages to being a Sage member. It's not just about having Sage software. There are loads of other benefits to that as well. If you've downloaded the slides, all of this information will be available to you. It should be easy to find via our help center and also our website as well. So you got access to things like member masterclass videos. So these are almost like presentations by industry experts. So there's 3 seasons of those videos now. You've got access to learning, access to webinars, you've got access to Sage City, loads of exclusive benefits to being a Sage member. And of course, being a Sage member is actually free. So you'll find out more information, and these links will be available if you've downloaded the slides. Just a quick plug for some of our upcoming webinars. What we introduced at the start of this month were what we term quick learn sessions. So if you want to find out more about these a specific option in your software, why not get yourself signed up for one of those? They're a bit shorter than our usual webinars. They last probably around about half an hour tops. So it'll be a 10 to 15 minute demo followed by Q&A. So next week, we've got Jackie on hand. She'll be talking about the batch supplier payments option, and she'll also be doing the following week, which will be bank payments and receipts. If you've missed any of those sessions and you want to play catch up, then again, recordings are available. Continuing with our products and stock theme, next week we're going to be running a session on the bill of materials option within your software, also journals, or posting those opening closing stock, and there's loads of other sessions that you can get yourself booked on for as well. So remember, links are included. You'll have those in a few hours time on the follow-up email. Now that brings us to the end of the session. We've got no outstanding questions at the moment. If you've got any, if you want to quickly pop them in, we'll just hang around for another couple of minutes just to see if any do come through. If you think of any afterwards, after you leave the session, if you're like me, as soon as you leave or we end the webinar, you think, oh, I should have said this, or what about that? There'll be a question springs to mind. Any questions, do check the information in our help center. And of course, our support team are on hand to assist as well. There'll be a little survey pop-up as you leave the session today. If you can take a minute to complete that, it'd be greatly appreciated. We'll love reading your comments, seeing how you score the webinar, that type of thing. If you've got any ideas, anything at all that you want to share with us, pop it on there. If you can take a minute to do that, greatly appreciated. Your follow-up email, mentioned it a few times, should be with you later on this afternoon. It's got your links on so that you can register for our upcoming sessions. And also, if you want to play catch up or you need a bit of a recap on what we've covered, there'll also be links to the recordings as well. Right, so hope you've enjoyed the session, hope you found it useful. Hopefully it's given you a little bit more clarification of the valuation reports. Remember, if there's anything you need beyond those reports, maybe you find it's not quite what you're after, get in touch with our support team. We do have that report design service. It may be that they just point you in the right direction and say, well, what about applying a filter? Or actually that would be a brand new report, or you could easily adjust it yourself following these steps. So get in touch. Right, no outstanding questions. We'll end the webinar at that point. Many thanks for coming along. Take care, stay safe, have a great weekend, and hopefully we'll see you on some other sessions soon. Many thanks.